for joining. And as Elijah mentioned, today we're going to be just flagging some key kind of guide points and highlights related to two fellowship opportunities that we have through the USGS National Climate Adaptation Science Center and the broader CASC regional network. The two fellowships are the National Science, or the Science to Action Fellowship, or we abbreviate that as S2A just for shorthand, and the Diverse Knowledge Systems Fellowship, and we abbreviate that as DKS. So just to go quickly through what we're planning to showcase today, we're going to give a bit of a program overview for both of the programs, highlight important dates and deadlines, talk a bit about the actual financial award, and what responsibilities come with accepting a fellowship. Second, we'll go through the eligibility criteria, which is actually slightly different between the two programs. Then we'll highlight a little bit about the application process, hopefully making it a little clearer and easier to navigate. And then end with giving a few key dates and points regarding the application process. And then Elijah is going to help facilitate the question and answer at the end. So hopefully we can get everyone on the right track for application or for applying for this year's fellowships. So just to highlight the differences between these two programs. So the Diverse Knowledge System Fellowship has an aim to support the use of diverse experiences, viewpoints, and value systems, as well as cultural knowledge to strengthen climate adaptation efforts. This is a slightly different kind of focus for the fellowship program than the Science to Action Fellowship, which is aimed to support development of a product that directly applies scientific research to climate change impacts on fish, wildlife, and ecosystems, but transitioning that to making decisions and applying those in management related to natural resources. Just very quickly to go over kind of key deadlines and time points regarding the application process for these two fellowships. Both of them are now open for what we're calling statements of interests, or SOIs. Today we're having our informational webinar, but the statements of interests are due January 18th. So you have a little bit over a month to put that together. Then the review committees for both fellowships will meet to evaluate all of the submitted statements of interest, and we should have decisions back to all applicants by February 23rd. And if candidates are selected, or if applicants are selected to be invited for a full proposal, between February 23rd and March 28th, that's the time frame you have to create a full proposal. And during that time, you'll be matched with a mentor from the USGS side. So one very common question that we have regarding both of these fellowships is if you have to have a mentor from USGS identified before you submit a statement of interest. And so the answer to that question, just to hedge that one off, is no, you don't have to have an identified mentor before you apply for the statement of interest. And so at that stage, you really just have to focus on developing your potential concept, or just highlighting what you plan to propose. And at that secondary stage, we go ahead and match you up with someone who's most closely affiliated with the work you're hoping to do. And then at that full proposal stage, so the applications are due at the end of March 28th, and then by March 26th, we'll have decisions out to candidates. In terms of what the actual award amount is, so each fellow receives a $10,000 award. This is not considered a stipend by any means, and it should not be used by your academic institution to substitute for a graduate stipend. So this is fully independent from what you should get in terms of your annual stipend for school and graduate through the university. And then one other thing that it is important to note, because this is a separate financial award, when you do your annual taxes, you do have to claim those on your taxes, and you will have taxes associated with this award. But again, just to emphasize that this is not intended to substitute for a stipend, and it cannot be used in replacement or in addition to trying to cobble together an annual stipend. So it's separate from that award. And maybe one other point to make in terms of the financial, let me go back one. Just one more point to make in terms of this financial award, because often this is a point of clarification that the fellows want to have, is that the intent of these funds are to be used directly related to the fellowship. So, but this is at the discretion of the fellows. So they can be used for travel associated with any sort of element of your fellowship project, or any other related event. But it's separate from your standard research graduate funding. Okay, and then moving just quickly on to responsibilities associated with the fellowships. Both of these fellowships last approximately 1 year, though I will say that in most cases, the relationship you establish with a mentor does exceed much more than 1 year. And historically, we've kind of planned to have fellows work kind of in residence with their CASC mentor. So in previous years, this has often been for 2 months during the summer when students aren't in class, but there is a lot of flexibility in this arrangement. But a few things that are required of the fellowship are to have update meetings with the review committee. And so that is fully the responsibility of the fellows to schedule those meetings, develop an agenda, and provide a small or short progress report that they share with the review committee. And those are intended to just kind of serve as a means to check in with the review committee, make sure that everything is on track, and make sure that things are well aligned. In addition to that, at the end of the fellowships, we ask that all of the fellows provide a formal presentation, which has in recent years been a webinar that is presented to all CASC staff. And in addition to that, many fellows present in many other venues as well, within their home institutions or within professional conferences. And so that's always very highly encouraged. And, for example, some of the fellows have often used fellowship funds to do such things as present at conferences. And then the one other kind of final responsibility for fellows is to provide a final report that's highlighting, their experience and providing some lessons learned and advice for future students. And so I would encourage folks that are interested in applying almost all of the out-year fellows have their final reports listed on the website, so you can get some advice from taking a look at some of their final reports, just and to ensure that things are aligned with what they've done is aligned with what you're hoping this experience would be, and it's a useful exercise just to review those final reports. And then one other recent addition in terms of responsibilities is adding to the final report is to actually do a more public facing communications process, working with the National Climate Adaptation Science Center communications staff. And so that will be in the form of something like a blog post describing your experience as a fellow. Okay, so now kind of highlighting a few distinct differences between the two fellowships. So for the Science to Action Fellowship, students who are eligible to apply for this fellowship are graduate students that are enrolled full-time at any CASC consortium institution. So those are basically any of the universities listed on this map. And there are some extenuating circumstances that we've had to deal with in terms of a few of those requirements in terms of like full-time or when students have graduated, but we address those on a case-by-case basis. But in general, the eligibility is a full-time student at any of these CASC consortium schools. For the DKS, or the Diverse Knowledge Systems Fellowship, in addition to students that are present at any CASC consortium institution, students who are at a minority serving institution that may not be within the CASC network are also eligible to apply. So these are historically Black colleges and universities. Elijah, I'm blanking on TCU.
Tribal colleges and universities.
Tribal colleges, yes, that's right. Tribal colleges, Hispanic serving institution, and Asian and Pacific Islander serving institutions. Sorry about that. Yes, tribal colleges, of course. So students at any of those institutions, in addition to the CASC consortium institutions, are eligible to apply for the DKS. And so just jumping quickly onto what the application process looks like for both of these. So at this first stage, which is the current stage that is open, SOI, so we're calling that an SOI stage, which is statement of interest. This statement of interest is a short application, which includes a one-page cover letter and a one-page pre-proposal and your CV. And the pre-proposal is basically just to highlight what you anticipate or what you're proposing to do for your fellowship project. And again, at this stage, you do not have to have any USGS mentor identified based on what you provide in the pre-proposal, if you're or in the statement of interest. If you're selected to go on to the second stage of the proposal and writing a full proposal, we will match you with a USGS mentor that aligns with your research interests and broader needs. And so then the second stage of the process for individuals that are invited to submit a full proposal, there's a bit more of an expanded application stage. So you have to create a full proposal, and this can be, you can include a revised cover letter, an updated CV if you'd like, a full project proposal, and as well as letters of recommendation from your university mentors or advisors, and the individual or individuals that will serve as your USGS mentors and advisors. And so the anticipation is at this full proposal stage is that you do work with your potential USGS mentor, and that your USGS mentor can help you develop a full proposal so that you establish an initial relationship with that individual prior to submitting the full proposal. But again, you do not have to identify that individual or individuals yourself. That will happen on our end, on the back end, after the statement of interest, first stage of the proposal or of the application process. Just as a reminder of a couple of the important dates. So all applicants will be notified via email of the decision at the first stage by February 23rd. I'm sorry, here. And applicants who are selected to submit a full proposal, they will be notified of the decision by April 26th. And I will say, for just as maybe the most common things the most common questions that I've gotten via email are one, eligibility requirements. So thank you for putting that link in the chat, Elijah. The other one is, again, if you have to identify a USGS mentor, and again, I'll say it one more time, but you do not need to identify a USGS mentor before you apply at this first stage. And then the other thing is in terms of the important dates, the first deadline is January 18th, and you do have to apply through our proposal management system, which I would highly recommend creating an account a few days before the deadline, because it can be a little clunky at times, and so it's good to make sure that you can create an account and have access to the portal before the deadline. So that's another thing that I highly recommend, is trying to get into the system before it's actually due. So. Yeah, and Elizabeth, thanks for the question. Okay, here's a few coming in. So the product, how we define a product for decision making or management is fairly broad, and so it's basically anything that will be basically taking your research or your science from your graduate work and transitioning it to application. So any sort of applied use of your research. And I would encourage folks to take a look at the former fellows and the research and their kind of, again, in looking at their final reports, you can see the types of products that they produced, and it's a range of different things. Some of them are tools, some of them are communication products, some of them were looking at engaging with different groups, and so doing things like surveying different types of resource managers and things like that. So there is quite a range, but and you can kind of see the types of products that have come out of the fellowships by looking at the final reports.
And they can be social or physical science products. Yes, that's correct. And the next question here, would you be able to talk about whether there are actionable research needs that the CASC or USGS has identified?
Yeah, that's a great question, Emma. In terms of kind of the broad, so I would encourage you to look at the CASC website for kind of the broader vision and mission and goals of our program. But most of the work that has been funded through both of these fellowship programs is related to climate adaptation, in terms of, again, what can be used on the landscape, using science, but using it on the landscape. The Diverse Knowledge Systems Fellowship has an additional kind of component or facet of looking to integrate more than just Western science perspectives into the process too. So.
And I gotta.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead,
I put in the chat the CASC mission for 2023 to 2028. It's pretty dense, but it's really comprehensive to get at projects and see if the things that you're maybe currently working on align with that, and you can put that in your statement of interest. There's another question here that was submitted through the Q&A, which is, if you do have a specific mentor in mind, is that possible to suggest or request?
Yes, that is possible to suggest or request someone. You can indicate that in your letter of interest and even in the pre-proposal text as well, if you'd like. And I think there was one other question about where we can find the reports from previous fellows, and so I'll go ahead and link. So I'll go ahead and link a few things in the chat here. At this point, the Diverse Knowledge System Fellowships, because that is a newer program, we don't have the final reports yet on the website, but you can read a bit about the projects that the fellows have had. And then let me get the one for the Science to Action Fellowship. That one has been going on for a number of years longer. So we do have reports from those on the website. So
there's another question here. So for Science to Action, do the projects need to be located within the United States, or is any climate policy related work occurring at a CAS consortium institution eligible?
Yes, so I would say the majority of projects that have been funded through the fellowship have been within the US, but there's no requirement that the work has to be within the United States. And I will say for myself, for example, I'm a CAS biologist, and I have some international work as well.
Okay. Oh, one more. I saw the S2A Fellowship Alumni Mentors list on the website. Are these different than the CASC mentors that applicants in the second stage will be paired with?
Yes, so the alumni mentors are fellows that have done the fellowship previously. So essentially we integrate fellows into the process once they've kind of, I don't know, graduated is the right word, but once they've completed their fellowship, they are engaged as members of the review committee as well. So we found that it's been useful because those fellows have had the experience of being a fellow, and so that they bring a new and valuable dimension to the review committee as well.
Okay, do individuals who attend an HBCU only apply for DKS?
So in terms of the eligibility requirements, yes, the HBCU students are eligible to apply for DKS, but for the Science to Action, you have to be at a CAS consortium institution.
So again, if you have any other questions or comments or anything like that, questions about the application, any of that stuff, just let us know. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll leave the last remarks to you, Abby.
Thanks, Elijah. And yeah, we're just happy to answer any additional questions, and we encourage you to apply. And feel free to also reach out to any of the current or former fellows if you want perspectives from those that are participating in the process too.